What's going on, everyone? I am just a typical, average American here today to react to a video called Why Norwegians Don't Immigrate to the United States. So, as an American, I'm not really aware of how many Norwegians actually move here to the US every year. So, I looked it up, and it says in 2023, out of 560,000 total immigrant visas that were issued to the US, the amount of people from Norway out of 560,000 was 60. 60 people immigrating from Norway to the US. So, not a lot. Not a lot at all. Norwegians, according to the data, really don't move to the US. But it's kind of funny because here in the United States, we like to say that we are the best, we are the greatest country in the world. But that certainly doesn't seem to be what Norwegians think, because not many are coming here at all. So today, I really want to learn more about why Norwegians don't want to live in the United States. So let's take a look at this.
Oh, Donald, so you want to know why people from Norway, Sweden, and Denmark aren't lining up to immigrate here? The answer isn't even a mystery, it's a spreadsheet. I mean, you act like migration is just about winning a spot in America, but for a Scandinavian, moving to the US isn't an upgrade. On most measurable metrics of human well being, it's a downgrade.
Whoa. Jeez. That's harsh. Oh my God. That's not pulling any. That's very blunt. I'm really curious to hear more about this, but is that what it is? I mean, for a lot of people, she's talking about Scandinavia, which includes Norway. For a lot of you guys, moving here, where I live, would be a downgrade. It would be worse. Like it'd be bad. Wow. I don't know if that's saying that like Norway or Scandinavia is amazing, or if it's saying that the United States is bad, or maybe both.
On paper, critics here call the Nordic countries socialist nanny states. In reality, they're some of the freest societies on earth. Freedom and democracy indexes regularly place them near the top of the world rankings, while the US sits noticeably lower down the list. You love to say
What? Huh? Freedom and democracy? Rankings? We're low? We're bad? We're ranked low in freedom and democracy? It's funny because so many Americans like would be so shocked by that. But I think what this is really saying is it's more about what the rest of the world looking at you says. Of course, every country thinks maybe especially the US, we think that we are the most free and the most successful and the great. But according to the world, ranking us, we're not, which is very eye opening.
they hate freedom, but look at who actually has control over their own lives. In Scandinavia, abortion is treated as healthcare, legal under national rules, widely accessible within set time limits, and covered by public systems.
Wow,
In the US, a woman's freedom over her own body now depends on which state line she crosses, with outright bans and criminal penalties in large parts of the country.
that is very true. And honestly, more so, what it really is emphasizing is how in the United States, a lot of our policy decisions are still based on like religious beliefs and religious ethics, and like how half of the country really doesn't think that abortion should be allowed at all. And a lot of that has to do with Christianity and religion in America. And yeah, that something that I kind of take away from that is how it's kind of strange that that drives a lot of the decision making in the US still to this day.
To them, that doesn't look like freedom. It looks like a human rights problem. Their freedom isn't just on paper. It shows up in daily life. In Sweden and Norway, there's the principle of every man's right, which allows people to hike, camp briefly, and forage on most land, including private land, as long as they respect nature and property. I know that's a difficult concept for
Yeah. Yes, quite difficult. Wow. Yeah, that makes me think a couple different things. Like in the US, it's funny because we interpret if people can go on your property, that's imposing on your freedom. Like as the landowner, we care more about that than everybody else being able to peacefully travel and camp and hike where they want to. Not that, even here in the US, we don't hike and like go outside and do all that, so it's not even like a big topic of discussion, but yeah, in the US, freedom is more about your right to shoot people who trespass rather than the right for everyone to just peacefully, travel on everyone's land like that. It's almost like totally opposite, like concepts. It's really quite amazing.
people in the U.S. to understand. And so in the U.S., the default is no trespassing signs and stand your ground laws.
Yeah.
On LGBTQ plus rights, international surveys of social acceptance and legal protections consistently show Nordic countries among the safest and most accepting places on earth, while multiple U.S. states are actively rolling back protections and targeting queer and trans people in law. In Scandinavia, equality is close to the default setting. Here, basic recognition is still treated as a culture war issue.
I mean, this is, it's quite eye-opening. I think it's actually quite good to see criticism of the U.S. because, here in the U.S., we do criticize ourselves. We do talk about, like, what we're doing wrong. But it's not the same things that you guys talk about. Criticisms of America. If that makes sense. We talk about, like, other issues in America here. Whereas these are criticisms that we don't even really think about. Things that we think are just kind of normal, which isn't good. So I think it's really beneficial for Americans like to hear this.
For women, the comparison is brutal. The World Economic Forum's Global Gender Gap reports keep Iceland, Finland, Norway, and Sweden clustered at the very top of the global rankings for gender equality.
Wow.
The United States sits much further down, with secondary sources based on the same data putting it around the 40s and behind countries Americans almost never mention when talking about who treats women best, places like Costa Rica, Liberia,
Wow.
Nicaragua, Namibia, Colombia, and Cabo Verde.
I didn't know that the United States was so behind, like so far down with all these rankings and stuff. Probably something we don't like to talk about here, to be honest.
In the U.S., having a baby is a financial shock. Hospital bills, little or no paid leave, and some of the highest childcare costs in the OECD. In Scandinavia, childbirth is treated as a normal supported life event. Parents get substantial paid parental leave, and childcare is heavily subsidized or capped, so women aren't punished economically for having children.
That's a good point. That's probably one of the craziest things about living in the US, how having a child, whether we're talking about healthcare or childcare or just how difficult it is to afford children these days. It is extremely difficult to have kids and afford it in the US. Whether we're talking about like in the hospital, the birth, the medicine, or like the kids themselves. And I mean, as a result, I know that birth rates in America are really going down, declining rapidly. it's becoming more and more uncommon for young people in America to have children, which is a shame. Um, and this is a perfect example of something that's we don't even talk about. Like how our healthcare is so messed up in America that having a child, depending on your health care insurance, I mean, if it could cost you up to like, if everything goes well, after insurance helps, you could still end up paying like $5,000, which is pretty. I mean, most Americans on average don't have $5,000 to like spare for something like that for an emergency, let alone like a birth, which you are supposed to plan. Ideally, is on purpose. Um, it's pretty crazy actually, and yeah, like I keep saying, stuff that we don't really talk about is weird.
They design policy around biology. We effectively punish women for becoming mothers. Race
Oh
is
boy.
exactly where you
Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh boy. I didn't. I didn't know what this video was gonna cover. Um, I just knew it was gonna be like why Norwegians, Scandinavians don't immigrate to the U.S. And so far, it's just doing a pretty compelling job at listing everything wrong with the U.S. I think a lot more Americans need to hear this. Um, and this section is about race. Okay.
Race is exactly where you do not need to romanticize anyone, right? Scandinavia is not a racial utopia. Experiments and reports show that applicants with foreign sounding names get fewer callbacks, and there are real issues with
Oh
segregation,
wow.
xenophobia, and discrimination. But the depth of harm is different. In the US, race is tightly bound up with incarceration, policing, maternal mortality, and wealth gaps. Being black or brown here significantly raises your risk of being imprisoned, dying in childbirth, or being killed by police. In Nordic countries, bias and exclusion exist and matter, but universal health care, tuition free or low fee higher education, and parental leave still formally apply to everyone, regardless of race or origin.
Um, it's definitely true that there's still racism in the United States, and historically, especially black people in the United States have had. I mean, the history is horrible and embarrassing, and I think a lot of people are still feeling those effects today. Of the horrific, segregation and race-based laws in America that weren't that long ago, and a lot of people are still, suffering financially still to this day. There's still lots of parts of the United States, like cities or parts of towns and cities that it's like, oh, that's the black part of town. That's still very much a thing in the United States, but we definitely have a lot of issues with that. And a few years ago, a lot of publicity around police and police video, actually showing a lot of the abuse that a lot of high profile, there are a lot of black based crimes, police on black people crimes that were brought to light. And thankfully, I think, more recently it's being talked about more. And I think compared to where America was like, 50 or 70 years ago, we are much, way, 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 way better now. But, she's right. Like, it's still a huge problem.
Their racism is a serious social problem. Ours is a life and death structural problem. When you turn to the American dream, the numbers don't save you. Either the World Economic Forum's global social mobility work ranks Denmark, Norway, and Sweden among the countries where it's easiest to move up if you're born poor, while the US sits well
Wow.
below them, down in the 20-something range.
That's an interesting statistic because that is the sign of a really, really special country. It's very special. It's very good if you can be born really poor and disadvantaged, and through your own hard work, you can, make yourself successful or wealthy or whatever you want. That's really cool that is a possibility in Scandinavian countries. In the U.S., it's definitely possible. It's not easy, but I think in the United States, if you have like a hard work ethic, if you get yourself in school or work towards a certain job or a career or you can start a business very easily. I think America, compared to a lot of other countries, I actually think we do a decent job at providing upward mobility, like opportunity for poor people to change their life. Obviously, on the other hand, is for all the people who don't, change their life or whatever, or those people who are poor in America shouldn't just be left to suffer and starve and not have proper housing just because like they didn't invent the Apple computer or start a business or something, right? That's true too.
Translation: if you want to be born low income and have a real shot at ending up safely middle class, the math says Copenhagen gives you better odds than Detroit, right?
Okay, so that's the distinction. In America, you can go from poor to rich. That's like the American dream. Really, what we should be focusing on is that poor to middle class and doing it on a much grander, a larger scale for more people. I've never heard of that before. I've never heard of that concept. Get people from poor to middle class. Here in America, it's always about poor to the moon to I'm going to be a billionaire. Which I understand now how stupid that is. Or at least for helping like your whole population and your overall happiness. And I've never heard that before. I really like that. Healthcare.
On healthcare, it's even uglier. In the US, research on personal bankruptcy shows that medical bills or illnesses are central factors in a large share of filings because even insured patients face high premiums, deductibles, and out of pocket charges. In universal coverage systems like Norway, Sweden, and Denmark, core treatment is financed through taxes, and user fees are heavily capped or subsidized. And the explicit design goal is that using the health system should not bankrupt you, right? Why would they trade that for a system where freedom means the freedom to lose your house because you got cancer?
Man, I mean, this might be want to talk about something that isn't talked about enough in America, the healthcare problem. Um, and a lot of Americans don't even realize how crazy our system is. And she is spot on with this. Like, man, a lot of Americans are like scared of universal tax-based healthcare. I don't know why. I think there's a lot of like misinformation about that, or Americans have been conditioned to be scared of like socialism. And if my taxes paid for my healthcare, I would be so happy. I don't understand how that's controversial at all. Like, it would be amazing if my taxes covered my healthcare. I would love to know that. Right now, I think most Americans have no idea what our taxes are even paying for. Wow. Okay. I only got halfway through this video, but as difficult as it is to kind of listen to this and hear why Norwegians or Scandinavians and people have so many criticisms of the United States, and how there are actually a lot of reasons why someone would stay in like Norway. Why would you move to the US and have to deal with all these crazy things? Things that are just normal to us, that we don't even think about. It's crazy. So I'm going to stop here for now and continue the rest of this, part 2, next time. So if you enjoyed this, feel free to give this video a like or leave a comment with your thoughts on why Norwegians don't immigrate to the US, although I'm starting to understand. And if you're interested in more videos like this, me reacting to Norway and Norwegian culture, and feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching, and see you next time.